5 schools completed the survey, and Ms. Martha Farrell actually very kindly showed us how to collate the information from the surveys, and at our last meeting we analysed the data. 81% of respondents were aged 12 to 15. The surveys came from 27 different areas in Kerry, and we will later on we will present the findings.
Hi, my name is Eva Morrison, and I'm one of the lucky 6 people from our Kerry Road that have the chance to go to Strasbourg for the Enter Youth Week. So what is the Enter recommendation? The Enter recommendation was adopted in 2015 by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe as a response to the fact that young people from disadvantaged neighbourhoods are more vulnerable to all kinds of risks, including poor physical and mental health, substance abuse, self-harm, violence and exclusion. The recommendation is directly pointed primarily to the national governments. However, it is about the situation of young people in disadvantaged neighbourhoods. The young people, or the policies of local authorities, are often most relevant. The recommendation was elaborated with proposals coming from young people and youth workers involved in the Enter project. What does it recommend? Improving the living conditions of young people, making vocational training and quality as second chance education opportunities available more attractive, improving the access of young people to affordable housing, acknowledging that young people should have equal access to public facilities such as post offices, playgrounds and community centres, adopting gender-sensitive, inclusive and learner-centred curricula to make them more accessible and relevant to the needs of young people, actively supporting initiatives of young people and their organisations to promote social inclusion and address the stigma and prejudice, encouraging responsible authorities, the value of non-formal education and youth workers' organisations, youth work practitioners and organisations that provide non-formal learning opportunities should be supported, improving public access to information technologies and youth-friendly information and counselling services. I'm now going to show you a video of the second day that we were in Strasbourg and what we did.
Les jeunes sont extrêmement investis sur un sujet qui me tient particulièrement à cœur, c'est l'accueil et l'intégration des migrants. Ils ont une plus-value de construire une ville, je parle à l'échelle d'une ville solidaire et une ville ouverte.
Ce qu'ils appellent des évaluations humaines, que nous, qui sommes dans cette situation, le sais, sont des évaluations qui ne donnent pas accès à des citoyens. Donc après ça, quand j'entends votre égo qui dit pour les jeunes, c'est ça, pour les jeunes, on se projette, mais on n'a pas de raison.
Sim, especially cool or first for the
sur personnes qui vont représenter le pays ou la commune ou la ville. C'est ça.
Peut-être qu'avec nous ça va marcher, mais pas très bien. Alors nous, on pousse encore plus loin. On donne encore ceux qui sont petits.
Do a lot more to just explain it to people what they can do to have access to those rights, how they can help themselves but help others in life. So we didn't know much about social action, social rights until we got here. So I come back to research and actually physically look up these things because we're not really taught about them in school. So if we are, it's probably the smallest amount.
I guess if you're running around the other, they won't say anything, but if you don't explain it and go into depth about it, then nobody's going to know.
So as you can see, we were given a great opportunity to go to Strasbourg, France, and take part in Enter Youth Week in July of this year. This happened with the support of the KDYS and the Kerry County Council, who gave us a great donation. We arrived late on Sunday evening and settled in. We played pool and games downstairs in the centre where we stayed, before heading to our rooms in the wonderful centre. On Monday, it was our first full day. We got up nice and early, we did icebreakers to get to know some of the other people participating in Enter. We then walked to the Council of Europe, 70 steps for 70 years, celebrating their birthday, where the members of the Council of Europe were broken up into different groups to work on different topics. On Tuesday, we went to the Palais again. We broke up into focus groups and working groups to discuss the measures outlined in the Enter recommendation. At the end of the work, this is the last day of the work on the recommendation for Enter. On Wednesday, we attended workshops around Strasbourg. We discussed different topics and subgroups, and then had personal time to explore the beautiful city together. There's a photo of us just walking into the centre after the day. On Thursday, it was the last day of the week of hard work and fun. We went to the Council of Europe for one last time. We looked at the Enter draft of conclusion, then we prepared a message for the Council of Europe. We had a closing session, statements and conclusions were made of the week by institutional representatives, and closing statements were made, and we had a group photo. This was followed by a night of fun, dancing and goodbyes with all the friends that we had made during the week. The photos here are just some from the week. So the first photo is of the last day where we all came down in the European Youth Centre and we took a big photo. That is outside the Youth Centre, the Parliament, with all 6 of us that went on the trip. And then the other one is on a farm that we visited on one of the trips. So those are just some other photos. If you want any more information on what we did during the week in Strasbourg, you can visit the 2 Instagram websites that we've just put there. So, thanks so much for listening.
We're now going to talk to you about our survey findings.
The majority of our respondents were aged 12 to 15. 1% didn't give their age. 12 to 15 were aged 80% were 12 to 15, whilst about 17% were 16 to 18.
The majority of our respondents said there were youth facilities in their area. 2% decided not to answer this question, 85% said there was enough youth facilities in their area, and 12% said that there was not enough youth facilities in their area.
40% of respondents did not respond to the question, said that the facilities were not adequate in their area. 9% did not respond to the question. 40% said that the facilities in their area were not adequate, and 50% said that they were adequate.
The next question we asked our responders was if they use these facilities. 2% decided not to answer this question, 56% that they do use the facilities in their area, and 41% said that they do not use facilities in their area.
If you have a look at the bar chart, you can see what facilities were most in use.
Then we asked our responders if there was any barriers that were stopping them from using their facilities, and the main barriers that we discovered were transport, restrictions and expenses. A lot of people said other things that fell into other categories.
We also asked them what facilities they would like in their area, and 46 people said that they would like to introduce a skate park into their local community.
So I think it was 46 people said that they would like more, they would like a youth club or an improved youth club in their area. So that was quite, the main, I think one of the main youth facilities that they use in their area was also youth clubs. So youth clubs is coming across quite strongly. And yeah, there was 19 people wanted a park or a pitch, 16 people wanted a skate park, and 11 people wanted kind of more shops in their area. The 58 is no response. So there's some of the main findings. When we break the survey down further, we'll be able to send you on more detailed results. So Emma,
okay. So if the Mayor of Kerry, Comhairle, could come up and speak.
Thank you all, Bishop Ray, Mayor of Killarney, Councillor Michael Gleeson, fellow councillors, and more importantly, members of Kerry, Corlin and Oak. Thank you very, very much for your invitation here this afternoon and for the presentations that you've given us, which are very informative. And it was great to see your trip to Strasbourg, and to see the amount of work that you did while you were there, which is very, very, very important work, because I think youth of today, you're our future of tomorrow, and I think it's very, very important for people at the age you are to get involved and become active in civil society, and to well done on your research in relation to gathering together all of the information from your survey and getting the outputs that are there. I think there's one thing I challenge you on though, in relation to, it's great to see the people who know what they want and the initiatives and services that they would like to see in the area. But I put one challenge back to you. What was the reason why 58% of the people didn't respond? Was it that they didn't know what they would like, or was it that there was challenges that it may never happen? Because I think you have to be aspirational in relation to the challenges that you set yourself and that you can seek to get from your area. So services like the Youth Centre here, which is a fantastic facility, and I want to thank Tim and all the staff here in KDYS and Eurog for what they do year in, year out, and providing a facility for yourselves. I think, Neil, was it 2017 or 2018 I was back at the AGM in Tree?
That was 2018.
2018, so at your AGM I came when I was in Michael's position as Mayor of Killarney, and I really, really enjoyed what I saw that day. The engagement between everybody as young people, the passion that you had in relation to what you were setting out as your tasks, and how you disseminated the information that she had in relation to the objectives that you were going to set yourself. And that goes back to us as members of a local authority. We have issues that are raised, but we have to plan. And in my position as chairperson of the LCDC and the LAG, all acronyms. That's the one thing with politics, there's acronyms for everything. We develop a local economic plan, an ECP plan, and that feeds into a lot of what you have on your agenda and what we have in relation to the facilities around our community in providing all around the county, rural parts of Kerry and in other parts. I suppose there's one thing that I've always, and it comes down, and I gave a speech recently at an award ceremony in Rathmore, my old school, in relation to one thing that really inspired me getting into politics. And that is the fact wherein if we see something that's wrong, it's not up to somebody else to right that wrong. It's up to us all. And something that comes out in society a lot today is people have something to give out about, and they say somebody should do something about it. But you have to look at yourself and what you can do about it, and take on that challenge as yourself or as part of a group as the Ireland Cnnog, and take on that challenge and right that wrong. You may not always succeed, but there will certainly be a lot got out of the actual attempt of trying to succeed in righting that wrong. And it's something we see in every walk of life. And I'm just going to run through one of the bits of the speech here. Well, I wanted to do something about it, and that's why I've been so keen to carve out a life in politics, to help other people, if I can, to improve the community in which I live, to work tirelessly to make a difference, to do the right thing, and to encourage others to do likewise, to devise and implement policies that make this town, this county, a better place to live, to do something about it. I wanted to do something about it. And maybe going forward in life, you can do something about it. Maybe that person that other people rely on to do something about it is you. If we all play our part, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it might seem, then life will be better all around. We all need to do something about it. And I think another message that, and a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who was the 26th President of the United States, I'm going to quote you. There are two kinds of success. One is the very rare kind that comes to the man who has the power to do what no one else has the power to do. That is genius. But the average man who wins what we call success is not a genius. He is a man who has the ordinary qualities that he shares with his fellows, but who has developed those ordinary qualities to be to a more than extraordinary degree. And I know that many of you who have those qualities here today, and being the best that you can be, can develop them to an extraordinary degree to achieve the great things that you want to achieve in life. Not everybody can land on the moon, but we can all reach for the stars. And I encourage you all to be ambitious with Cnnog and with your own future and life. And to remember, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to make a difference. There are no limits to success, just like there's no limit to your dreams. And if you want to be the best you can be, do something about it. And I wanted to say that again today because I think it's very, very apt in relation to when you look at something that maybe others see as being insignificant, or the 58 students who didn't decide what they felt was important for their area. I think it's important to challenge and understand the reason why that is, because collectively ye all can make a difference. You can make a difference in making representations to us as public representatives in relation to items that are important for you and your community. can start off something. So keep up the good work. Well done in your presentation. And I certainly think you all enjoyed yourselves over in Strasbourg. It's gone, but you can hear me. In the time that you were there. And we have a DJ and all, here now that.
The battery, you were that for now. So you don't roll, but there's no battery.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work, and anything that I can do, please let me know when your AGM is. I'd be more than delighted to attend. And it is very much important that you engage in the future and in today, because it's your future. It's not our future, it's yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor Clover. And if you have both Clarion could be my look here. Thanks.
Agrina Oga, the lady's top piece of show. You, young people, most important people. So Agrina Oga, God Diana still hasn't learned the word of Irish. She knows about 15 other languages. We did a chat this morning out, she's getting there. Bishop Ray. And to all assembled here. If you were to make one resolution today, and only one, I would ask that you would wipe from your mind forever the most horrific word I know. It's bored. If you're bored in Killarney, you've problems. There's so much to enjoy, so much to participate in, so much to become involved in. It's a constant and daily invitation to integrate, to recreate, and make great friends. Sometimes maybe it's best to quote people. And there was a proposal some time ago to abolish history in the junior cell. Fortunately, the minister, Mr. McHugh, who interestingly, as minister, had no word of Irish, which is a reflection probably on all the teachers or whatever in this country, but anyway, that passed. But he was appointed junior minister for the Baltic, and he went off and he learned Irish at the age of 40. Shows what can be achieved. The reason I mention history is that there was once a very famous person in Irish history called Thomas Davis. And if you drive through Mallow, you'll see his statue. Died very young. But he said once upon a time, he said, educate that you might be free. Free not just from fear or lack of knowledge, but free to have the greatest privilege any young people can have. Free to have visions and dreams of a better future and a more wonderful world. That is the challenge and the privilege that each one of you have during these very special years of your life. And if you embrace that exciting challenge, you will transform your own life, you will transform your own home, you will transform your own town, and you will transform our country into a better and more wonderful place for everybody. And I can't invite you to do anything better than that. And with those very few words, I wish you great success. And I want you to realize that life is for living, life is for enjoying, and life is for sharing it at all times with friends, and sometimes with those who may appear to be enemies, but whom you can make into friends. If you do achieve that, you will have a wonderful life. God be
kärt barn har många namn, and that means a beloved child has many names. So I'm very happy to be Gordiana here. I can also be Gordana, which was my name that was given when I was baptized. But it's lovely to have an Irish name also, so thank you very much for that. So I did not prepare anything because I didn't know exactly how this afternoon would go, so I was trying to address a few things that you said before. But before that, I thought maybe we can all stand up and do a little energizer, because you have heard so many speeches now. So if we all stand up and face this side. Yeah, and then you put gently your hands on the shoulders of your neighbor. And then you softly start to massage. Some of us are very good at this, and some of us are not so good at it. So now we turn around and we massage. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a little example. I don't know your name. Ivana. Okay, Ivana. As Ivana said, they were having a great time in Strasbourg because they did energizers. This is a typical energizers we would do in non-formal education, and we are quite good at that. And I think you all have had this experience. Just to say, my name is Gordana Berjan, and I work for the Council of Europe. For some of you, you have heard this already, but since we have a new audience here, I thought I'd make a little bit sense why I'm here also. So I work for the Council of Europe, which is this European organization that covers almost all countries in Europe. So we are not the European Union, and we are the oldest organization in Europe that was established after the Second World War. And the idea was at the time, we don't want any more wars. We need to defend human rights. So how do we do that in the best possible way? So it started off in a small scale around culture, cultural cooperation. And then it evolved and it became bigger and bigger, and today we are the main organization in Europe that defends human rights. And we promote democracy and the rule of law. So this is our mission, and for many years, for more than 50 years, our organization has said we cannot build a Europe without the young people. So for more than 50 years, we have had work with young people in different shapes and formats to promote diversity, to work against discrimination, to work with human rights education, and this has evolved over the years. And most recently, you visited Strasbourg Center, the pictures you saw, that's part of the Council of Europe's work with young people, to have this European Youth Center where young people can come together from, I don't know how many countries you were. There were a lot of countries represented there at this. There were almost 300 young people there. We have a second European Youth Center, which is also this safe space for young people to gather and to work around issues which are of importance to them. And I'm working there in Budapest. So we have these two centers, and they are the most important to us when it comes to work with young people. And Ivana mentioned also this recommendation, enter recommendation. It sounds a little bit weird. So just to explain that our main instruments that we use in the Council of Europe to make the countries, the member states that are members of our organization, to do the right things in terms of defending human rights, it's to have conventions. And there is one which is really important to Europe, and I think you all heard about it, the European Convention on Human Rights. And this is the one that defends each and every individual, so if my rights are violated, I have some protection, so I can complain about that. And we have a European Court of Human Rights, and all that is in Strasbourg where Ivana went on this Enter Youth Week. So just to say, this is a really important thing. We have these conventions which are protecting us, but we also have recommendations which are not legally binding, but somehow when the member states said this is important, it's a recommendation, it means that there is a moral obligation. The member states have said this is important, a moral obligation of our member states, our politicians, our decision makers to do what is said in this recommendation. And Ivana nicely listed the different things for us. So just in short, this is what we do. And then we try to work with the young people in the 2 youth centers. And one of the main things we do there is human rights education. And I was very impressed today in the morning because we could hear how Eurog is working with human rights education and how you are doing it also in schools. And I think that what you are doing here in Eurog is a very good example of how other youth centers could work with human rights education. So you are helping us in our mission by doing this kind of work. So that's a little bit about the Council of Europe and why we are here. And part of our work to make sure that we achieve what we say in our mission is to partner with centers like Eurog, and we do that by giving them this quality label. And that's why I'm here now, because Eurog has had this quality label for 3 years. This is a label for youth centers that do excellent youth work and who provide these spaces for young people to do exactly what you are doing here today. So you help us in a way to achieve our mission. But we also have to check that you are doing the right things. So that's why I'm here now today and talking with Tim and the whole team and the mayors. We had a small talk this morning to make sure that you also get the right support from the politicians, from the decision makers, but also the Council of Europe. It's really important that we give you the support we can. So the main thing for the Council of Europe when it comes to supporting young people is to create these safe spaces. So the safe space can be the youth center, the safe space can be an Enter Youth Week, it can come in different shapes and formats. And it's really important, and I think your survey, and I will say a few words about your survey, shows that, because many of the ones who responded said that these spaces are important for young people. So how do we make sure that there are good spaces where young people can be young, they can be themselves, and that we work with the young people, because the young people are the experts on being young, and they actually help us to understand what is most important for young people right now, and what is the solution, and that's where you come in, because we can think of 1,000 things that could be good for you, but if we don't check with you, it doesn't work. So the participation and involvement, as the mayors, both mayors said, is really important. That you engage and that you are part of the discussions and the solutions. So I think, for example, you said that there were many who felt that there are barriers in the youth facilities to actually access them and use them. I would encourage you to think a little bit. So what are those barriers? How can we solve that? What is practical? Some things you just have to change because it's a procedure. Sometimes some things cost and you have to wait, but you can look at that and maybe come up with some solutions. And for those who decide and those who are working in the centers, for them it's to create some kind of possibility for you to have these spaces. So that's their responsibility, to look at how can we support them so they have their spaces. So there are many different players in this, and very interesting survey that you did. So I want to congratulate you on the work you have done, because what you have also done, which is extremely important in these kind of youth centers, is that you bring new understanding and knowledge to a challenge. So you help us build understanding, and we can then design our programs and our policies in a way so it makes sense for you too, so it benefits you, because there's no point in having policies if they don't work. We just want to have them so they actually have a positive effect. So this is a little bit what I wanted to say. Maybe to finally say that the whole purpose of, to finish, because I can talk a long time as you can see, so I'll stop now. Just to say that the youth centers are of course there for the participation of young people, and so they have these spaces for them. But eventually the ultimate goal for why we have these youth centers is because it's so extremely important that young people are part of building our communities and our societies and contributing to more solidarity, more understanding. And I think we heard a lot about this morning, because there were different projects that were explaining what they are doing. in contributing so we actually have better societies. And eventually, for me, as Council of Europe representative here, you are contributing to a better Europe, a more unified Europe and more respectful Europe. So thank you for all your work that you have been doing, and just keep it up, don't stop, even if there are a lot of obstacles, because that's your duty also to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grosjean. Now, Tim, the CEO of KDYS, Tim Oden. Thank you.
I thought I was trouble with my name, all right. Firstly, thank you to the Comhairle for the invitation here today. I had the privilege of meeting with representatives from the Comhairle there about 5 weeks ago, and we spent a Saturday here together discussing their trip to Strasbourg and also the work on Sorry for Youth facilities, which has come back with some very interesting findings, and well done on that. I suppose today our event, and this event from the Comhairle, forms part of another event that's taking place at the same time, which is our assessment to see if we can continue to retain the quality label. And Gordon spent some time there describing what that entails and how it connects this youth centre here in Kerry to a network of youth centres across Europe, very much informed and exploring the concept of the values of the Council of Europe, the importance of our commitment to human rights, and essentially harnessing the power of young people to come together and really find solutions and bring that energy to shape a brighter future Europe, a more powerful Europe that joins us all together. I suppose maybe just to talk a little bit about what the Youth Centre here represents in the context of two things that you talked about today. One is you mentioned the youth facilities around the county, and one of the things that really struck me is that youth clubs feature quite prominently in all of that. And I suppose we're very aware of our county being quite a rural landscape, and you mentioned also the challenge of transport and having access to maybe some urban-based type of, I suppose, attractions such as your cinemas and swimming pools and so on. But the youth club continues to form a very important centre in your local community, and it's good to see. And it is one of the things that we retain a very strong commitment to here in KDYS, despite the fact that we'd say policy and funding has drifted into a more targeted space, which is a challenge for us, but nevertheless it continues to feature as a priority for us in KDYS. I suppose the second thing is that you displayed a very strong awareness of others, not just in the context of wanting to know what young people want by way of youth facilities in the county, but also in your trip to Strasbourg, you returned, you identified the importance of the recommendation from the Council of Ministers, which identified right across Europe, I suppose, the challenges that some young people have in socially disadvantaged backgrounds. And I suppose that forms very much part of our programme as well here in Kerry. And we work not in isolation, we work in collaboration and partnership with the council, with the public representatives, and with a lot of agencies and other organisations to try and ensure that everybody gets access to their human rights. Everybody has access to a lot of the basics that we take for granted in our daily lives, and that is critical that we continue to do that. I suppose one of the key things about being a quality labelled youth centre is that there are currently 13 centres across Europe who have the quality label, and I suppose we come together once a year in a platform meeting and we share, I suppose, our experiences, and we try and always develop the standards a little bit more every year, and we take our learning and our experiences and really try to be innovative around all of that. And last year in 2018 we came up with 5 core objectives that describe what a quality youth centre is. I suppose the first and foremost is that it's a safe space for young people. And we heard that mentioned quite a lot today from young people directly. So there's a physical space, but there's also the space where you feel safe, comfortable, that you can meet with your friends, you can meet with your peers, and you know that you share things in common and that you're there to experience something positive. I suppose this centre here, what follows from that is that we try to design the centre in conjunction with yourselves to ensure that it responds to that particular objective. But also, a space is just a space. 4 walls are just 4 walls. It's what comes out of it is the critical aspect. So our education programme, as we would call it in the language of I suppose the European speak, it's the programme of activities that come from our centres that not just deliver within the centres, but they reach the 4 corners of the county, hopefully on a daily basis. And they do respond to the things that you've identified. They don't respond enough, and they need to respond more. And that's a job for all of us collectively to work together, from the public representatives to ourselves to other agencies, to try and ensure that you're heard and that we respond and we work with you and not just speak down to you in relation to these things. I suppose the other aspect of it here is that human rights has been mentioned, the Convention of Human Rights, and we have introduced a programme this year, and some of the young people from the transition year in St. Brendan's College we're here today to talk about that experience. And it's a programme designed around exploring human rights and using some of the tools of the Council of Europe to be able to examine what these mean. And often when we talk about human rights, we can think, I suppose, more globally about some of the, I suppose, the terrible things that happen in the world, and we think they happen elsewhere. But in actual fact, the purpose of this exercise is to start considering how those human rights apply to each of us in our own local communities and what we can do about it. And that's something that's really, really important. And then I suppose finally, our centres are an important space for people who work with young people, people who design responses for the needs of young people, and that we come together and we network and we work together, I suppose, quite constructively to design problems, to design solutions, and that's very much informed by what you're bringing to the table today. So I suppose, look, in short, a lot of the things that you've said today, youth facilities, I always say that, you know, as adults, we don't all gather in one spot. We obviously have a diverse range of needs as human beings, but we also have a diverse range of interests as human beings as well. So the more that we can be creative, the more that we can respond, and certainly I know that the Council take that very seriously, and we're working with the Council in Killarney to try and introduce the skateboard park in Killarney. But you know, sometimes it can be slow, and sometimes it can be frustrating, and sometimes it can be beyond you by the time it happens. But I suppose, again, it's an important feature of being a quality labour youth centre here, that we facilitate and encourage that type of dialogue, that you're here having your voice heard, and certainly I'm sure that the public representatives and the council officials and everybody else understands and values that very importantly. So in conclusion, I would say a huge well done to everybody. You've done powerful work so far this year, and we look forward to the AGM and to continue the good work, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Tim. We'll now have a question session. So, any of you have any questions? Absolutely.
I have a question for all of you. What's your opinions on climate strikes by you, and do you think they're being effective?
On the climate, did you say climate?
What's our opinion on it?
I think what happened recently in many cities throughout the world was probably extreme and could run the risk of alienating many people who were genuinely very concerned about what is happening climatically in the world. There is no doubt there's a huge change happening in climate. Something quite correctly said, there has always been climate change, but the difference now is it's far more rapid, as we see from the Arctic Circle, from the melting of the ice cap at a hugely rapid rate. So we'll be confronted with rising sea levels, just for one example. There are many others. But I think taking over cities, central cities, that run the risk, as a former president of Ireland did say last week, Mary Robinson, she said, we all agree, or most of us agree on their objective, but it's how you set about achieving your objective is the challenge. And alienate or make enemies of the vast majority, whichever people of Dublin, then you could be losing what you want to achieve. And that would be my fear, the way they're going about it. But I would invite all young people to be leaders in the world in relation to the challenges presented to us by climate change. And I wish you well in that. It's hugely important. Thank you.
Were you referring to the school, the kids' Friday strikes?
Yeah.
Okay. I first and foremost, I agree with exactly what Michael has said in relation to the strikes in London and Dublin and all over. You have to get people engaged. But if you look at the Friday strikes and Greta and the movement that's there, it is important that the proper awareness is made for everybody in relation to, as I said earlier, doing something about it, and everybody doing their piece. Because we have so much in our lives today that is just convenience. And we've gone so far in one direction. It's about changing mindset, that people are very, very conscious about what little efforts they can play in relation to our climate. A very simple thing that I supported Councillor Gleeson at our last meeting was in relation to something that everybody probably mightn't take much advantage of, and that's balloons. They're nice, they look a good colour, but a lot of balloons that have been sold are not either recyclable or biodegradable. And Councillor Gleeson rightly raised that, and I supported him on it. So we all need to look at doing our bits. Everybody has a mobile phone now, everybody has things that are exceptionally convenient of us. We've plastic here. What's going to happen? All these small things. So I encourage students to continue to create awareness, because it is your future in that regard. But we've got to be very conscious to bring people with us. Those of us who believe, because there are many people who don't. There's also probably others who conveniently don't. But we've got to bring people with us slowly and surely to achieve what we need to achieve, rather than the way even politics we need to be today, to be very much them and us and different views and division. So that's probably my answer.
Can I also just say, I know we have a number of other councillors here from Kerry County Council and a number of officials here from Kerry County Council, and a number of staff from KDYS as well. So this section of today is very much open to the floor. We'd like to keep it nice and informal. It's not just a panel, because we've heard what the guys here have to say, which is fantastic. We want to hear your opinions on the questions. But if any members of the audience have questions, please put up your hand.
I want to play the devil's advocate for you, because I do agree with what Councillor Michael and I said, and we'll all be very climate conscious. But I'll ask you a question. If you had the Friday strikes on Saturday, and the reason I'm asking is if the Friday gives everybody a whip to beat you with, when you're coming out and just say, oh, they're only doing it because they're off school on a Friday. So the challenge I would have for you, if you had it on a Saturday, would you have the same amount of people?
The point of it, how some people see it, is that if they have it on Fridays, if climate change does get really bad, what's the point of having education? So that's kind of.
But I will look at you, if climate change is so important, then surely it's more important to give up of your Friday, of your Saturday, of your time. And this is the question that people will say, they ring up, or you hear it on the radio yourselves, people ring up radio stations, oh, they're only out today because they're getting a day off school. And then that takes away from the focus of why you were out.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge I would say to people. 150% support what young people are doing is great, it's empowering. But then young people start to need to think outside the box as well, here now. and say, okay, we're getting the negativity here because we're doing a Friday, because it's a school day. So the next step, I think, for that movement is you go on a Saturday. You say, this is our day, this is our day, this day is our day off in the week, and this is the day we want to come out and support climate action. And then you have people saying, yeah, well, hey, they had 20,000 people there yesterday because they care. Not because they're off school. So you take all that side away. And then you see the importance that it will have with young people. So I think you've come a step, but to actually be taken to the next level and to be taken serious, young people need to give up their free time to do the next one, in my view.
I would just like to say, if I may, I would agree 100% with what Mary said. Very, very important. Would definitely 100% agree.
What would the point be of going on a Saturday? We're going on a Friday because we're missing school. Going on a Saturday, it wouldn't affect anybody. If you go on a Friday, it affects the education system.
No, but it affects you. It affects you. And that's the point. My point is very simple. I understand you going on a Friday. And I understand there's a lot of people going out there with the intention and with the good intention. But the negative that you're going to get to that is people saying they're only going because they're going out of school. My challenge to you is go on a Saturday and have the same amount of people out. That's the question.
There will always be negative people though, no matter what day of the week you go. There will always be people who don't believe it and they won't support you. So.
Yeah, but then that's why you go on a Saturday to take those negative people out.
Can I interrupt now? He's used to it. What I would say is what was achieved in the 12 months from when Greta first went out on Friday to the major strikes and the major marches. You know, that side of it has been done. The awareness raising has been done. I honestly wouldn't get caught up now whether it's Friday or Saturday. Now it's about, this is a whole generation of young people who have basically said, those of us who are in the positions, who make decisions that are impacting me and affecting me, have to actually do our duty and have to make the changes that are necessary, and that you're there to support us to do that. Because this isn't like, you're not going to be striking ad infinitum, you know, for years and years to come. That's the whole point of it. We don't have those years and years to come to be striking whether Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The action needs to be now, and it is. And I actually want to go back because I made a point there that we've two Niles and we've two Normas as well, and we've loads of Johns in the council. We get and we luckily we do actually address each other on a first name basis. But consumption, the amount that we consume, and the convenience factor, and every one of us is guilty of that. And we all have, ultimately what we need to do is to pay more for less. And we actually have to start doing it from now. So when even the whole thing about fast fashion, and again, you know, it's there, it's in front of us. So rather than buy lots of inexpensive items, throwaway items and all the rest of it, that you actually spend more on items that last longer. When it comes to food, that the food has to be produced locally and closer to home. When it comes to air miles, you know, when I was growing up, you know, which is not considerably amount older than you, I think. I see. Where's Anne Murphy? Anne Murphy is the same vintage as myself. She's there somewhere. When we were growing up, we did not take flights anywhere. The cost of a flight was beyond most families in this country. It was something that maybe you saved up for a considerable length of time and only in special occasions. The idea of going on a flight, because air traffic was very, very expensive. I honestly think we're going to have to get back to the stage, and it will happen. So they're the kind of sacrifices that will have to be made. We are working, and there's a lot of good organisations in this country who are working towards cleaner fuel and cleaner energy consumption. But before we even get to a stage where we can actually transition from the fossil fuels into that, we have to stop living as we are. We have to consume less, and we need to do that immediately. I know what I'm saying is he's basically saying rather than having negative publicity, I would simply say to that negative publicity, that's not the point now. We're beyond that. It's about the action that needs to be taken.
If I may say just one thing about Greta Thunberg, I'm myself from Sweden, so I have to be a big fan of Greta Thunberg. But I think it's an example, and we have seen this before, especially in the context of Council of Europe work and campaigning. It's one person's activism that turned into a youth movement. global movement. And this is not the first time where one young person or a few young people come together. The hearts that you have on your doors, the no hate speech, that was actually a group of young people who came up with the idea in the Council of Europe and said, we have a problem online. Human rights are not respected online. We have to do something about it. And it started out several years ago as a youth campaign among young people to help young people to create counter-narratives, to create some kind of ways of approaching what is happening on the internet. And then it turned into a Council of Europe campaign. So the member states said this is such an important thing for our societies that they took that on board. So it's not the first time where young people are in sort of spearheading a new movement of some kind, and it's quite natural now. In the Council of Europe, for example, we are now developing a new strategy for the next 10 years, what we will do in the youth field. And what happened was that we are co-managing the youth sector with youth representatives, and they said, we have to have not climate change in our strategy, they said we want climate crisis. And they forced the member states and the representatives of the government to accept. They said because it is a crisis, we are dealing with a crisis, and now it is written and it needs to be adopted. Still, we will have to see. But here, definitely, the young people made a difference in shaping the policies of a European institution. And I think this we have to remember, that there is a huge power in youth movements. Whatever we think is good or bad on a Friday, on a Saturday, or anything, I think while Greta did it in the beginning, she sat in front of the parliament. So it made sense that she was sitting there on Fridays while the parliamentarians were meeting. Now, of course, it has turned into much bigger than her sitting alone in front of the parliament.
Can I also just say something responding to that? You have to think about it, because any publicity is in fact good publicity, because it does get people talking about the actual climate change, whether it's good or bad.
I'm just putting the point, because I want to. So I think it's important. If you want to protect you're saying you don't care about the haters, but as Councillor Gleeson will tell you, you try to bring everybody along. You try to get your message to everyone. And what I'm saying is your message is not getting to everyone because people are saying it's a Friday.
But it's still getting them talking.
I know, and I agree with what you're saying. I'm just giving you, we can all sit here with roses and chocolates and give them out, but I'm just giving you my point as an alternative to.
Can I just say that one of the ideas of protests in general is for disruption, to disrupt the norm, to disrupt what's there already, and for young people to take that decision to try and disrupt what the norm is, they will achieve more when an adult is in their actual job and their role, which would be on a Friday, not so much maybe on a Saturday. So there's.
Yeah, I understand.
Can I invite Emma to
right.
ask a question?
So I'd say we'll have enough of Friday versus Saturday now. There's an aspect of individual responsibility that comes to climate change, but especially in this, I suppose, event, with the ability to ask local government and a larger, I suppose, overarching change to combat it. So, any of the Kerry County councillors in the room answer this question: what are council doing to combat climate change?
Well, I suppose it's interesting that you asked that question today, because this week all of the local authorities and the CEOs in the country have adopted a charter in relation to what it needs to do as a local authority and the services that it provides with climate change. One of those goes to the 4 effectively specialist centres of environmentalists who have been hired by local authorities in relation to developing strategies. And I suppose the first part of that is in relation to climate adaptation, the severe weather events that we're having and what effect it's having in our communities and in our towns. There's 4 of them, one in Sligo, one in Cork, Maynooth and Dublin. focusing on coastal erosion, inland flooding, and issues that are affecting urban areas in relation to flash floods effectively, and the systems we have not been able to cope. We've seen it in this county, I've seen it in other counties where you have flash floods. Our simple drainage system is not equipped to do it. We've taken out a loan in Kerry County Council alone of nearly €7.5 million to retrofit all of our public lighting, to install LED in every one of our public lights. Number one, there's a saving, but there's a cost up front, and there's a benefit to the environment. The other is in relation to something that I've been advocating, and something that's not been rolled out fast enough as far as I'm concerned, is electric car chargers in our public car parks. I think our national electricity provider got a grant, did what they needed to do with the grant, and haven't been serious about it, and is waiting for the government to come up with another ball of money to do it. We as local authorities
you better work here, right?
So there is things that are being done. There's quite a lot more that should be done. But not everybody, unfortunately, is on board with that when you look at this. I suppose one thing we've had to, one thing that's been amazing, this is something that Michael was very, very active on. We had plenty of paper cups around the place inside the council all the time. With the Conscious Cup campaign here in Killarney, Kerry County Council supported that. We now have all our reusables. I know we all can be doing better, and I think that's the point that needs to be had and needs to be raised. And it's not cheaper by any stretch, as Councillor Moriarty said. It costs more, but it saves on the future, and that's something that the local authorities need to do along with.
Is there anything else in the room who'd like to feed into that question?
Is there any advice that you could give us to kind of get more involved in the Council of Eurog or the Kerry County Council that can make a difference in our schools and at home?
Well, yes, of course you can. I mean, we work through the youth centre here, Eurog. We try to make sure that the staff working here, whenever there are activities, that there is an opportunity for them or for the young people to participate, like you did in Strasbourg. That was a conscious effort to make sure that you participated, a group from here. I think there are many interesting things that you can tap into. There is always some kind of campaigns going on. They are interesting. For example, our colleagues that are working on gender equality, for example, your study was very interesting, and I was thinking all the time, did you do a gender dimension to your study? Because that could have also been interesting to see. Is it more accessible for young women or young men, and which kind of activities do young women want to have more than young men, and so on? So, for example, there is a new campaign now on sexism, and it's very, very powerful. It has a short movie clip, and there's a lot of materials. So, for example, if sexism is an issue that you want to address, you can tap into such a campaign very easily. We have materials, we have educational publications and other things that go along, so you can work and campaign around this subject. It can be other subjects. There is a campaign in sports also, if people are interested in sports. Then we do a lot of training courses for young people themselves that you can attend, and that's usually very powerful because these training courses are a little bit longer. You meet with other young people and you go through different educational processes. So what I can encourage you is to look a little bit more on, we have a youth portal, and there you can see all the different things we are doing. You can, through the center, you can be in touch and see what we're doing. We are not the only anyone, but I believe we have very good educational offers, the Council of Europe. But for example, the whole European Union structure with Erasmus Plus has a lot of opportunities. And we heard a little bit today, youth exchanges, voluntary surveys, and other types of activities where you can tap, and it can really enrich the work that you are doing and give you new ideas, new contacts, new relationship. And I think this is also one of the ambitions of the Youth Centre here, to make sure that there are more and more opportunities there, because there are lots. You just need to decide where you want to go, what you want to do, and there are fundings for these kind of things. Also, if you want to do something specific, one of the things that the Council of Europe has is a European Youth Foundation. It's usually towards youth organizations, but you can organize yourself in different ways. You can apply for a small grant, and then maybe you have an idea which is in line with the priorities that we have, which is youth participation, access to rights, access to social rights, working and building inclusive societies where gender equality is important, where minorities are important, and so on. And you can also apply for a grant, for example, if you want to do your own project. So there are many opportunities, and if you are interested, we can talk more about it afterwards. But look at our youth portal, and you will see there are many things.
I know that obviously Comhairle is one of the formal ways for young people to engage with the Kerry County Council, so that's obviously the reason we're here, and that's hugely important. In terms of on a local level, are there any other ways that you feel that young people could engage with the council? Do you think that the work of Comhairle is the best way to do that?
The work of Comhairle to continue as it is. We had, there was a group from KCC that came to one of our MD meetings as a deputation, and it was actually very positive. We put loads of work into it, and again it was around the issues of accessibility and so on around KCC. The meeting happened to be held in KCC at the time, but with the municipal district, is now known as the Comhairle MD area, and the retrofitting of the lighting actually happened soon after as well, because that was one of the issues that they raised. So you can have direct contact with your local councillors at a meeting, and you can possibly get a bit of councillors' allocations funding out of them if you have a specific project in mind. So you can have if you have a project in mind or an idea in mind that you seek a deputation from one or two of the councillors, they welcome you into the meeting and you present your case. And if there's a funding issue around it, then it's a great opportunity because the media cover it as well, and it's in everybody's interest to be seen to be carrying out actions as well. So it's an opportunity to leverage those things in the right way to achieve what you want to achieve. So you can ask your KCC colleagues how they manage their work. Okay.
Yeah, just to come in, I suppose the community department of Kerry County Council support Comhairle, as you know, and I suppose we've been supporting it for a number of years, as Tim knows, and the Comhairle have been recipients of the Community Support Fund, which the elected members support every year. Small grant initiative, but it has enabled the Comhairle to develop certain projects over the last number of years, so it's important to mention that. But I think what's critical here, and it's coming out from all the speakers, is your influence on policy and strategy. That's where you can impact on long-term change for you and the next generation and how we shape our county. And I think politically the elected members have an absolutely critical role in that. That's what they're here to serve you, to serve the people of Kerry in shaping and developing policies that shape how Kerry is going to look over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And we have strategies and policies covering a wide range of area. Everybody has different interests, but since today's focus was on facilities for young people, we're actually embarking on a review of Kerry County Council's play policy. We're looking at calling it something slightly different, because we're now looking at, we feel it should encompass all play, and play is not just about your fixed equipped playgrounds, it's much beyond that. It's about safe spaces, places to meet, and we're very much, Vincent Foley's here, the engineer with the council, has been very involved in Kerry's play policy over the last 10 years. But we've accepted now that it's time to change how we perceive play in the county, and we've over 30 playgrounds. We started with only 37 playgrounds in Kerry now. We started with only 5 or 6 back in 2004. So a lot of us remember what used to be perceived as a playground in comparison to what we have now, but we accept that it's beyond that. And it's beyond just for young people as well. It's for all people and all citizens of Kerry. But that's a piece of work that we're embarking on in the next couple of months. So we will be engaging with Comhairle on a consultation around that. Silgra and Claiborne in Northern Ireland have been contracted to assist us in that consultation with young people in relation to it. So that's a piece of work that we can actually work on. It'll probably be the new core, I'd say, Tim, but it's something that we can work and the elected members adopt that policy. So the consultation will be across the 5 municipal districts, but it's the role of the elected members of Kerry County Council to adopt the policy. Once the policy is adopted, we target our resources into the implementation of that policy. That's how it works, so that's how it's so important. I know we've often given strategies and policies to Comhairle, and they've always been fantastic to engage with us and to give their feedback, but it's important to know the policy isn't just a document on the shelf. From a local authority's perspective, it's where we target our resources in the delivery of those policies and strategies, so it is really important to have your say.
I'd agree with you there. There has been a deficit there in the country between what people want from the facilities that were within the remit of the councils, your typical playgrounds, your typical adult exercise. And through Comhairle, I know, and with your colleagues and your youth colleagues in one of the towns in Kerry and through KDYS, we're going off identifying there's adult exercise equipment, there's playgrounds, is there a gap to be filled in? And we've identified an area where the young people in that town where we're going to talk to them and see can they put together ideas about putting in outdoor facilities for safe places to hang out, because you cannot hang out in a playground, you cannot hang out in adult exercise equipment. Is there a place you can hang out with your friends and where you won't be viewed as vandals, thugs or whichever? So we want to put in these outdoor safe places as well, and we're starting with a youth group like yourselves who had the voice to come forward and talk to us. So whether something comes of it or not, the more important thing is that it colours our ideas towards the policies we adopt, but it empowers the people locally who have their voices are being listened by the local authority.
And you can overcome the barriers. Vince will know this, Vincent and myself worked back in the first play policy back in 2004 now. But we were told at the time it won't happen. Insurance is not going to happen. You'll be sued, there'll be massive litigation. And there was huge negativity when we went out for consultation, but we had huge support of the elected members at the time. And we've now 37 playgrounds across the county, and they're of exceptionally high standard, even in comparison with other local authority areas. So you can overcome those barriers and obstacles. Just to have confidence in the process and in the importance of consultation. It is really important to engage with your local elected representatives and with us, the executive as well of the council. We're here, we want Kerry to be the best county to live, work in as well, and to be educated in. So it's in our interest that we listen to you as well. So as Councillor Moriarty said, you have the municipal districts, there's 5 of them in Kerry. We have municipal district officers here who support the elected members in each of those areas. You can engage with them if there's an issue that you'd like raised. There's always vehicles to consult with us, but the Comhairle would be the main vehicle that we as a local authority would engage with.
Can you just say one? We're extremely lucky, I suppose, in Kerry. We have a massive interest in Kerry. Maybe not in everything, but at least we have people over in Kerry County Council that, they know exactly, how to go about things. When the youth will come to us, to KDYS, they're always there to help. They're always there to help, no matter what. And we've expertise, with us, and it's very, very important. They are on top of their game, as KDYS have. A few things recently, that happened around. It could be one of several things, but all I'm saying is we have people over in Kerry County Council listening the whole time, as KDYS are. So we're very lucky in that way. We've always listened to people. Very, very important. That's an answer. Thank you.
Maybe just one point from a KDYS perspective is that the basic concept behind being involved in the European Youth Centre Quality Label is that youth participation is a key feature within all of that. And that's something that's spoken about quite a bit, and it's the tenet behind having the call in the book. One of the things that we're anxious about is that, again, it's trying to link you to influencing policy, to bringing your views forward and shape how, I suppose, policy responds to the needs of young people. And one of the challenges we have as a youth work organisation in the country is that policy around the funding of youth work has very much shifted it into targeted services for young people. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of, is that the resources for Comhairle is quite limited, and we can see the power of connecting young people to decision making. And even from a commitment from a KDYS point of view, part of our responsibility in joining the quality label is that we use language such as co-design and co-management with young people. We don't provide the youth centre to you, key piece for all of us to understand what role youth participation plays in our society. So, look, I think for me, I think one of the powerful elements coming out of today's meeting is that Gordana came to assess a youth centre today, but she experienced the community, and that's very obvious here. And I think everyone is very committed to making sure that you're heard. I do think that we have to look at how we resource that, and I think there has to be more resources available for more mainstream youth work.
I'd just like to say one thing as mayor of the town, but in a sense to back up what Tim is saying, and I don't think we can go on and on forever, maybe make them up. But I think you have to see yourselves in essence as the leaders. And the way you lead, the way you show yourselves as leaders is you give example in how we should live and what standards we should adhere to. If we're going to come back again to climate for an example, you show us what to do. You show us that you're prepared to walk 1 kilometre to the shop or to work. You show us, and I don't want to interfere with something might come up in a meeting, so you show us that you're prepared to cycle to your local sports field rather than say, Mom, will you drive me? You show us that you refrain from using plastics when it's the easy thing to do. If you set that standard and if you set that example, we have to follow it. We have no choice. And I have no doubt, I've seen young people do that. And just to put the other side to that, this time yesterday, I was a teacher a long time ago. I was talking to a former pupil of mine, now well into his mid to late 20s, who was in the desperate place of being a drug addict, with 2 or 3 young children, and a poor wife crying in the corner because of his addiction. And I was trying to help him. Now, you show us, and you show other people, that you can live a life different to that, without becoming enmeshed in that terrible world. And if you do that, you will be the clarion call that will lead to a better world for everyone. And that's the exciting challenge about being young.
I just follow on from what Michael said. I do a lot of stuff with young people, coaching and stuff. I couldn't be more proud of the young people from our area. I think this is amazing. But what I'm doing, and I'm not taking from any fellow councillor, because the boys know that I respect everyone that's gone before me as a councillor. They're here for the good of the county. And what I don't want to do now is walk out of the room here today after having our little chat, and we'll see you again in 3 years' time. I'm going to challenge you again, because as the mayor said, there's a motion before the council in a week's time. I would hope that that motion might pass, but it's going to take, and I know all my fellow councillors are going to support it, but then we will want your input, and that's the point of the motion, as the mayor said, and the mayor is a huge exponent of, we have issues in Killarney, we have issues that we can all sort together. But if I come with trying to sort the issue of parking in school and the traffic flow in the school and trying to get young people to cycle to school and have drop-offs so that young people can walk to school and get a bit of fresh air rather than, oh, I gotta get my Johnny right into the class, I gotta park the car in the class. Councillor Cronin, Councillor Brady, Councillor Moriarty, Councillor Kelleher, Councillor Gleeson, we can't do it. My kids are nearly gone from school. But if the young people empower the parents and we together work to say, hey, Mom, let's park in the new street car park. We can walk from here. Or I'll cycle to school because Councillor Gleeson has a lovely bike path coming in a few months' time that'll take you all the way to Killarney, into the schools, go through the national park and away to school every morning. But the challenge is, will you get involved with us?
In my school last week, every day we did a park and stride. So we got all the parents to drop their kids at the Aquadome and then walk into school, which was all organised by 2 members of the school, like the teachers, and then there was like 20 students from the school that helped. But my school is very small, so it wasn't too difficult to organise. But we also did loads of like palm oil and stuff like that. So that's in a load of food. And we're like, this is what you can have, and this is what you can't have, because palm oil is making them cut all down
That's the example I was talking about. Well, we've set a standard.
That's what we did in our school all last week. So all the students put multiple hours over the weeks organising it.
And we need that. It's easy for us to come up here, and I know my heart and soul because Councillor Gleeson taught me, and I've known Councillor Cronin since I was a child, Councillor Brady since I was a child, Norma for years, Councillor Kerry since he was a child. But
I'm still a child these days.
You think, oh, we're politicians all talk. We're not all talk. We're here to help. We want to work with anyone. But it's a small policy to see how we can get people to go to school, to cycle to school, to leave the cars at home, to even walk to school in the rain. It's an issue. It's a big issue for me, and I also know it's a big issue for Councillor Gleeson because he would have expunged this to me when I was in the mine. But you're here and we want to help, but we can walk out of the room and I might see you for 3 years again. So this is a challenge to you. Do you want to get involved? Because this is going to be a project that you can really stick your teeth into. Sit down with the principals, sit down with the council, and sit down with the mayor and say, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. Because I'm going to text all the people in my class, and I'm going to text all the people in my class. Because I don't know all the people in any of your classes. You know? But I think you're amazing. I really do. I'm really proud to be here. We're here an hour and a half. You wouldn't even notice it. I have to give you so much credit.
A lot of the schools are introducing walk to school things. My school as well, we have multiple drop-off points where parents can drop their children, and there was teachers at different points where you can walk past.
But it needs to be every day, not just days. You know what? That's the point. It needs to be every day.
Well done. Just well done.
I think the hardest part for everybody is even just getting people involved. For the councillors and for us, just getting the information across and getting people to actually listen to us. That's the hardest part.
What?
We can make as many. We can make as many.
Can I just maybe open the floor? Do any of the other members of the audience have any other questions or any questions for the Comhairle and Cnnog? Do our best to answer.
Yeah. So just because you brought up about your past
Yes,
pupil, about your past pupil, that he was a drug addict. What's your opinions on underage drinking and smoking?
I said to you about one particular one, I would plead and beg of everybody not to smoke. It destroys one's capacity to enjoy life to its full, even if it's only a question of climbing Kerry hill. Those who smoke will find it much more difficult than those who don't. And they die younger, if that's it. I think smoking is a hugely destructive thing. Drink, I never drank and he's doing fine, which is a wonderful achievement to be able to see it. Never did. I did drink and I always gave it up for Lent and I never went back about 12 years ago and I've never missed it. Dawn, I think this could say the same. Yeah. Gave it up years ago. I think a drink is fine, of course. Social drink is a lovely thing. But it has destroyed so many lives. And in fact, I tell you one thing, today is a very special day in my life. 28 years ago today, somebody that close to me, or closer if possible, died because of alcoholic poisoning. And it's still a scar in my life. Thank you. It's very easy to talk about.
Very easy, please. I just like to talk a little about smoking, a little about drinking, a little about drugging. I said to me, when I was much younger than I am now, I assure you, I used to smoke, I used to drink, and before I knew what I was, drink had a bad grip got on me. I was right in the depths of it. I couldn't go home at night. I refer to myself, I'm an alcoholic. I hadn't a drink, the last drink I had since 75. I don't even think of drinking. It could be flowing down the street, I'm looking. There was someone out there praying for me. But I was 6 years. The 6 years went into my younger life. that I faintly remember. So I was there before I actually knew what I was. So I'm saying that to the young people of today. I was a young man, I started probably 19. Before I knew what I was 27 before all of a sudden I said, I had a young family, I can't keep this up. And there was someone praying for me. I got alcoholic poisoning, I survived it. I was steeped in it. Thanks to Dr. Donovan, was gone down at the end of New Street. He's the only one that could treat me at the time. But I was down that way. Now, I was a young man at the time and I couldn't keep going. I would be dead. But my children certainly wouldn't have a father. But I was very young at the time. I don't tell this too often to anyone. But I want to tell you the dangers of drink, the dangers of drugs. Don't anyone have any doubt in your mind. This young people here, I've been involved in Kerry life and whatnot right down through the years as regards drugs are concerned. Every young people today, they're tempted at a very, very young age. And they must be strong enough to say, no, I don't do drugs. It isn't as simple as that. And when you're addicted, it isn't easy to give it up. Addiction is addiction. People say, oh, look at them down to this and that. They don't want to be where they are. Don't ever forget it, guys. Don't start it like Councillor Gleeson said about smoking. Don't start drinking. Drink, be reasonable. But whatever you do, let's stay far away from drug. Drink is a drug. Just be careful. I was young, just maybe a little older than what some of you are. I'm down the wrong road, but I was there before I knew where I was. Just be careful. You know, and it's a tougher life today than it was when I was young. Remember, the last drink I had was 1975. I have no mind for drink, but you're dead before you know it. So, all I'm saying is, seek help if you think you're going down the wrong road. And the other way, the dangers are there, and the dangers of growing up today are much harder today than they were when I was back in 1775. So I wish you well. You know, seek help, ask someone, talk to someone. To this present day, there's no week goes by and I'm talking to someone about things like that. I wish you well. Thanks.
I want to commend my two colleagues. It's that they're not things that are easy to talk about, especially to people that are here. But I suppose last Monday night I was at an event which was by a number of people from the hospitality industry. And we got to talking about the smoking ban. And that man was probably in his mid to late 50s, and he had just been to a consultant in relation to issues that he had. And the consultant asked him, how many cigarettes do you smoke? He said, I've never smoked. And it was the passive smoking at that time, before the smoking ban in the industry, which gave him loans. He may as well have been smoking. Thankfully, we've division that we don't have that in public places now, but I think it's very, very important that it is an addiction. It starts as that. It may start as peer pressure. And all I'll say is there is no need to feel pressured in anything about life, no matter what it is. There are people that are in similar circumstances, and it is important to talk. Talk to your friends, talk to people that are here in KDYS and people to support you. It is difficult and it's not easy, but I suppose it is important to, drugs are everywhere. It is quite funny. It's no longer that they're at every town, they're at every crossroads. But you don't know what's in drugs. And we see today it is greed of money, and it is very, very bad on society. And it's now got to a stage wherein, as a society, we're not putting enough into helping people who are addicted. And we need to work with those people, and it goes down this very bad road of people getting into debt. And we're seeing it in our streets in daylight these days in relation to crime as a result of drugs. All I've got to say is be aware of your circumstances and your surroundings, and always talk to somebody, because that's what will get you through a lot of these things.
I'm 49. I'm 50 in 3 weeks. I'm the youngest of 6 boys. I've lost one brother to drinking and smoking. He got cancer about seeing everything. I've seen it all. I've seen drink, I've seen smoking, I've seen drugs, I've seen it all. And what I take from it is I need. I don't need anything to be anybody else. And that's what I take from it. And it's a disease. It really is. And I could go and I could, be angry about it. But I'm not angry about it. My brothers are suffering and there's nothing I can do for them other than help them. And let them, but from your point of view, you're young. Enjoy life. Enjoy it to the fullest. But you don't need anything to enjoy life. As that word was used before, bored, no such thing. There is no such thing as being bored.
Just from my back, I said someone very close to me, to the fellow on that I said there, young, died as a result of smoking. They were smoking something in the region of 60 cigarettes a day. And I suppose at that age, I would be about 15, 16 at the time. And it had an impact on me, but I suppose I matched the fact that someone that was very close to me and that I was very fond of, I had lost him because of the smoking, and it turned me off from him. So I never smoked, I couldn't light one food. I often came under pressure as a teenager, and coinciding with what Niall said there, I would suggest never ever, you don't have to smoke or you don't have to drink to be cool, ever. You don't have to bow to any kind of peer pressure, ever. It takes a really strong person to actually say, no thanks, I'm not into it, and walk away. And what I've seen, we said the smoking thing can lead on, obviously, to other things. And like the alcohol, in moderation, everything they say is fine. But I suppose the roles we have as well, each and every one of us would see the consequences and the devastation of what total obsession with alcohol can do. And over the years, I've come across situations where families, like very serious situations, maybe similar to what Niall said, where they completely destroyed the family, destroyed the health, family broke up, small children lose the house, can't pay for the mortgage, devastating impact. They go their separate ways, and it just destroys the whole family unit. And it takes a very strong person. The advice I would give is to be strong and to be able to say, no thanks, you don't have to be on cigarettes, be drinking or taking drugs or anything like that to be cool. And of course there's one other addiction, and I've come across a few instances quite recently, and that's gambling. Believe it or not. I have witnessed, I'm aware of situations where parents of, we say, people in their mid to late 20s are repaying unbelievable gambling debts. There's money lenders involved, there's pressure being put on family and friends, and it is causing huge problems. And I'm talking about in our town where we live, right close to us. And it is another concept that's dividing families, and it's causing huge issues, huge personal issues, huge relationship issues. So there are a huge amount of challenges, and I was looking earlier there, and you were talking in your research about the youth clubs, and one of the findings was, we say, more access to youth clubs, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And of course, I grew up in an era, believe it or not, when I was a boy, and that's a bit ago now, but we lived from the age of about 12 to 17, 18 in our local youth club. There was youth clubs outside in the 2 miles school, Bussa, Kilcummin, Muckers, Kilcummin, Clarley, St Mary's Parish Hall. We'd be 2 years.
Oh, I was here in this place next door.
Yeah, and it was a great outlet. We lived for it, and we went there, we met our friends, we met new friends, so on and so forth. Then came the concept, of course, that people pushing stuff and got involved, and there was problems with insurance, there was problems. But if we could go back to a focused situation where we could provide the facilities that your research pointed out, it is a huge outlet, because a lot of the time, what we're told from from the younger generations, we have nowhere to go at the weekends. There's nothing to do. And I know you're saying about the board, but sometimes in the evenings and over the weekends, you know, if you don't have somewhere, doesn't it lead then to the drinking? Doesn't it lead to the smoking? Doesn't it? So I think it is critically important for our part as elected members at the moment. And if we can help in any way, shape or form, and as has been said earlier, the invitation is there, come to us. We're here based in Killarney, the town hall is below there, the lads are here, the staff, and us as elected representatives. If we have some initiative that you think is critically important and that can make a difference and benefit the younger generation, bring it to us and let us know. And we are to our area meeting, whatever, and we'll organise that and assist. Stay strong and don't ever bow to peer pressure. It is critically important. You don't have to bow to being cool, let me tell you.
Great. So, about substance abuse, okay. Well, firstly, last few speakers, there were a lot of personal stories there, and that's very personal, and thank you for sharing that through. And we can all stand here today and say to us, the young people here, don't do drugs, don't abuse substances. And yeah, that's great, but there's also another aspect to it. If you look at all the people, adults, let's say, who abuse substances, a lot of them start in their teen years. So how do we, I suppose, modify their attitude towards substances? Not necessarily limit to who, but to have more healthy relationship, let's say, with alcohol, so that they use them rather than abuse them. Or to, let's say, drugs, then they actually understand the side effects than just saying, oh no, you can't touch those because my teacher at school, my mum said, they're bad. So that's something.
I think see you're hitting the crux of you're hitting the crux of the problem. And when I was your age, it was the same thing. Come back here, tell me what to do, right? And I'm not going to listen to you. I'm 17, you're 40, I'm 49, you're 49, what are you telling me? So, I don't know, I really don't know, because what you're saying is probably the age-old problem that we've been dealing with. How do we create a message that's not a dictatorial message? That, like as Brendan says, you don't need to, it doesn't make you cool. For me, I lost a lot of friends because I didn't smoke or drink. A lot of friends. But how do you get that message? It's the question. And it's the best thing I've said here now. So how do you marry both? I don't know, because what the message I'd be giving would be, you're too old to know. You know, I think there needs to be more of an opening from young people as well.
But also,
no, I just want to answer. You said, maybe back up some answer. Going back, a number of years, with young people coming and they were saying the same thing, maybe just a little bit after me. But I remember KDYS was saying that was a major, in different towns and whatnot. I'm saying the weather, and we're also saying, what can we do to help the youth? We certainly should be looking for something to help the youth, non-stop. But unfortunately, government have to, I'm not giving any political party, they're not there to prepare, not that they're prepared for the ones that have gone astray. There's no place so they can get help. There's no, they're not being serious enough. When we've been to ministers asking them, how can we help the youth? Should we be doing A, B, or C? It's not enough. There's they're telling us the whole time we don't have enough. I remember then we came along, we said we needed our new hall, we call it basketball hall or club, where people can hang out. We need things like that. We built the new place, 16 million. We went away and we sweated blood to get that built up. We wanted to try and do it for the youth and the basketball club and everyone that wanted to use it. But as we grow older and as time goes on, we need more and more and more and more, so we can try and help the youth. There isn't enough things. There isn't enough things out there to help the youth. But we must keep looking non-stop to try and help them. All I'm saying is, unfortunately, when people go down the wrong road, there's not enough places to try and help them. And it is very, very sad. So I just want to say that we were lucky enough, KDYS and those other clubs came on board. We tried, even nightclubs that could be influenced, or even people go to discos. They need that at your age. At your age, they need it, absolutely. We need to do more for the young people, and we'll always search like that. We have a project going, hopefully it should come off very shortly, for the youth again. We certainly, as a council, we certainly hope that we're going to get that skate park up and running. And I'd have to say thanks to our Kerry County Council and KDYS and the young people themselves that got involved. I think this is heading in the right direction. So let's hope it is. So thank you.
Let's finish this part of the day on that really positive note. Can I invite Ellie to finish?
I'm going to keep this very short, but we'd just like to conclude this event by thanking you all for coming, and to everyone who gave a speech, thank you, it was very motivational, and we hope that you all had a good time and that this was a beneficial experience, and there will be refreshments available in the Eurog Cafe, so thanks for listening to all our presentations.
Before you all run out the doors to the food, because I know you're really hungry, we would really love to get a group photograph of everything against this wall here, I believe.
Yes, so, yes, Daniel's going to